watching State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Christopher and the show is brought to you by the Tampa School of Real Estate. We're here every single Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time to help you mastermind and grow your real estate business. And today we're talking about one of the most essential skills as a good real estate professional. When you think of a good realtor, a good real estate person, a good real estate salesperson, whatever you want to call them, you typically think about listings. You're maybe thinking about open houses. And yes, you could borrow somebody else's listing if you don't have your own listing to hold open houses at yet. But it works so much better when you have your own listings, when you have your own inventory. And not only are open houses better, because open houses are a great source of buyer leads. A lot of people will come into the open house, but less than 1% of houses sell as a result of an open house. It does happen, absolutely. Especially in a hotter market, if it's an open house that first weekend and properties are going under contract, like back when we had a year ago when they're going under contract in like 7 days, then yeah, the open houses were more of a big deal. But honestly, going back to the market of the past year, that's where you just end up really getting lucky in doing business because it moves so quickly. Whereas in a more normal market like we're in now, and we're not in a bad market. There's no such thing really as a good or bad market. It's just, is it more of a buyer's market? Is it more of a seller's market? And no, we're not in that 7 days on market where things happen a lot faster, prices go up faster, and so on and so forth. But we're in a more normal market where it does take on average maybe about 30 days or so, which is right about where equilibrium is. We've been hovering between like 25 and 35 days, pretty much on average about 30 days on market, which again is our equilibrium normal type of market. When I got started in real estate, it was like 50, 55 days on market, so it was a much slower market. But in these slower markets, you learn how to be a true professional, how to stand out from the competition. Because in a market like we have today, or any market that isn't a market where you're getting deals closing in like 7 days or 10 days, which that's crazy. That's not an expectation, that's an extreme. Just like the 45, 50 days on the market is a little bit extreme on the buyer side as well. So there's these market cycles that always happen, that always occur. And they're not always significant price drops like you see in 2007. We've experienced many market cycles since then, and they're usually just smaller fluctuations. You experience it every single year with seasonality as well. You know, the slowest time of the year is December and January. But that being said, there's a lot of transactions still happening right now. There's new listings hitting the market. There's properties that are going under the market and also going under contract below the days on market. So even though we have an average of 30 days on market, if you're a good listing agent, and we're going to talk about today what makes a good listing agent. If you want to actually excel at this, if you want to be great at this, if you want to be phenomenal at this, it's more than just taking pictures of the property and putting it in the MLS. So let's go to the board here. Now, if you don't yet have a real estate license, we're the Tampa School of Real Estate, and that's what we do best, is helping people start their real estate careers. But we're not just here to give you a class to get the license and then toodaloo. No, we're here for you for the life of your real estate career. You could always tune in to State of Real Estate every single Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time. I don't know if we call this a podcast or a webinar or whatever you want to call it. We call it State of Real Estate every Friday, 12 noon. We're here to help, again, talk about things like listings. Now, we have a lot of other classes and whatnot you could take. Myself, I'm a broker with multiple broker licenses, multiple brokerages. There's other brokerages we work with in the area. We're here to be kind of like a catalyst to help you start your real estate business. So if you have any questions about that specifically and you want to talk confidentially with one of our advisors, let me put this phone number up here for you first and foremost so you don't have to wonder what to do as your ideas start flowing from what we're talking about here. And you could call or text us. Or you get signed up right online at tsre.us. So you want to get more information about getting your real estate license, completing your post-licensing, which is a huge component of really understanding how to be the most successful with your real estate license, as well as continuing education and so on and so forth, maybe becoming a broker, reach out to them. But let's get back to listings. Let's jump back to this front screen right here, because I like this little picture here of the listing, this property. You know, if you've got a listing that's got one of these here, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a palm tree. Without getting too deep into this already, we'll talk about the importance of curb appeal. And especially for people that are relocating to Florida from other parts of this country. And so this goes for really anybody. Man, this camera's way over here to the side. I don't know what happened. Someone must have bumped this. No, maybe it needs to go this way more. There we go. There we are. So a lot of people are relocating from all over the country, places where palm trees might not grow. Like, for example, in Florida here, we get a lot of people that are moving from the Northeast, and historically that's always been the case, but a little bit more so recently. And it's funny because I've got a cousin in upstate New York, and he was always just so fascinated with palm trees. He'd come down here, he's like, man, I just love seeing the palm trees. And it's just that they don't have that there. So any homeowners, you're maybe thinking about a plant to put in your front yard, a palm tree, that goes a long ways. That's one of the few places where you could actually have a palm tree. So that's a very attractive thing. And but anyways, let's get in. That's not really my main tip, but that's just my little comment about this image that we've got here, the palm tree. That definitely sells that whole tropical vibe. And even if this is a property way out in the suburbs, not even necessarily on the water, it's still the same climate, it's still the same weather. It's only maybe 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour from the beaches. So that palm tree is probably the state of mind that they're looking for. But more about the palm tree later. Let's just talk about, first and foremost, if you're brand new to real estate, very quickly, what does a listing agent actually do? So there's two sides of the deal. The side that works with the seller and the side that works with the buyer. And ultimately, these two people want to meet. And that's why you have people do things like for sale by owner, where a seller will put up the property for sale by owner, not use a real estate agent. You could do this legally. You could sell your own property without a real estate agent. But if you're not a real estate agent, you don't have the tools, you don't have the reach, you don't have the ideas, you don't have the expertise, you don't have necessarily the negotiation skills. And even if you are a good negotiator, are you a good real estate negotiator? Do you know the ways you can negotiate a real estate contract specifically? Because there's a lot of things specific to real estate that you'll learn about, despite what knowledge you might already be coming to the table with. That knowledge you might be coming to the table with, yes, maybe that does give you an advantage, and maybe you pick up some of this stuff a little bit quicker, but also keep in mind that there could be some bad ideas that have been accepted as true in the past that could be holding you back. So be open to some new ideas as you're going on this journey of whether you're just getting started in real estate or you're trying to get your business to the next level. What things do you think were impossible that you could make possible, and all of a sudden everything, there's a whole reality shift that could occur? Well, we'll get more into the details later on that. Let's get back to what the seller and buyer are. So if these people could come together on their own, so be it. They wouldn't need us. And even with the advent of technology, even with the ability to put your property on Zillow.com, you know who just had the #1 property, the #1 listing on Zillow in all of Tampa? This guy right here. So I don't normally take on listings. Like I said, I'm a broker with multiple licenses, so I actually have many agents at my brokerages, and usually I'm referring out any leads I have there. But if it is someone close to me, if it is something that, you know, I've got time for, whatever it is, I'll do it. And so this was something I actually co-listed it with my brother. He's also a real estate broker with multiple licenses as well. And we got the #1 listing in Tampa. #1 trending. We had over 10,000 views, over, like, I think right now it's almost 700 saves that it's got on it. It's only been listed for 2 weeks, and it's actually, there's been multiple offers on the property. It's probably going under contract today, and we still got more showing requests coming in, so it's been crazy. And this is only about 2 weeks on the market when the average is 30 days. So you might be saying, well, how do you do this? Well, I mean, guys, real estate is my life. Now, 10 years ago, when my career was nothing like where it is today, if you told me I could, you know, just, not even trying, but just, you know, let me do a good job for this listing, But not like I'm trying. It was no like me like paying for bots or whatever you could maybe do to try to like game this system or whatever it is. I was genuinely surprised when I woke up and, you know, I was just clicking through and I was like, whoa, look at that. We're on the home. And it was more so by how many views and how many saves. Those were blowing up. I was like, where are all these people coming from? And I was like, I wonder if we're being featured somewhere. And so I was like, oh, look at that. We're the #1 trending listing on Zillow. And so they're putting us right there smack dab on the front page. And I'm going to share with you today some of the secrets of some of the things that I know are what made the difference to be that #1 listing on Zillow. Now, you might be saying, well, John, why are you doing this? Why do you want to share your secrets? Don't you want to just use your secrets? Don't worry, I plan to. I plan to continue using these secrets. But at the end of the day, you know, I'd love it for everybody to be better. Because we all work together. Even if you're not at one of my brokerages, you might be on the other side of a deal. You might be working with the seller when one of my brokerages represented the buyer. And there's so many times I've seen listing agents do a terrible job that if you want to actually do a good job and you could prove that you could do a good job, you have a significant advantage over your competition. Now, you might say, what about buyers? Yes, you could work with buyers. So you could be a real estate agent for the seller, and we typically have another agent representing the buyer. Yes, you could potentially represent both sides. That is legal in Florida. The way you do it is as a transaction broker relationship, which actually is the default relationship in Florida. And this is great because you can get double commission if you could represent the seller as well as represent the buyer. But typically, just because of the nature of the cooperativeness, it's something like 99% of transactions get closed through what's called the MLS. A hot topic right now. And the MLS has always been a hot topic because listen, I've met a lot of people with a real estate license, and there's a lot, I'm not saying all of them, and just people in general, there's a lot of people that like to complain. And look, you know, we could look at the problems and issues and things and what, or we could make the best of it. And that's what most people try to do. Even if they are complaining about it, they're still making the best of it. So is this a perfect system? No, and it's always constantly evolving, but it works really well. And so what happens is, as the seller, and this is at base level, the lowest thing the listing agent will do. So the seller hires a listing agent, they sign a listing contract. That contract is going to specify the commission, not just the commission that the listing agent is going to earn. Let's say it's 3% of the sale price, how much the listing brokerage would earn. You'd have some sort of commission split with your broker potentially, maybe your 100% brokerage. Again, a lot more stuff you'll learn about as you move further along in this process here. This isn't the first time you're going to learn about listings if you're brand new to all of this here. So you sign this listing contract. You get a set period of time. Let's say it is 180 days. And they've agreed not only to pay you your brokerage a 3% commission, but they've also agreed to list in the MLS an additional 3% to be paid out to a buyer's agent. Now, if you are the one that represents that buyer's agent, then that 3% just comes right back to you. But if there's someone else in the MLS who says, oh, wow, look at it. And so what is the MLS? The MLS, if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like Zillow. If you've been on Zillow.com before, the MLS, it's the same type of idea. It's a bunch of properties that with photos, details, but the key thing that's in the MLS is the realtor-specific secret info, such as the commission, as well as details about showing and showing instructions, and the access system is usually integrated with the MLS to make it very easy to do showings, and so on and so forth. So the MLS is the system, the database where the buyer's agents are going to find properties. And let's say they find your listing. They schedule an appointment and now they want to do a deal. You do the deal. You both get your 3% of the commission, whatever it is, negotiated. But the thing is, when you're working with the seller here, you're much more in control. Whereas with the buyer's agent, yes, you have your buyer, but let's be honest, you're not even really in control of that buyer. I mean, maybe it's your buyer, they're working to you, they're with you, they're loyal to you, so on and so forth, but I mean, what you got to have a property under contract. And the person that controls that property ultimately is the seller, but by proxy to a certain degree, the listing brokerage. And this is why, again, I'm all for all of us getting better, so that way it's easier for us to do these deals together. Because when we have more skills, when we have more tools in our belt, there's more ways we could work together. We could be more creative. We get more deals done. That's good for everyone, including the real estate market in general. More transactions, more people getting what they want, and so on and so forth. But how do you make your listing stand out in this wild world of the MLS? So think of like Zillow. If you've never been in the MLS, there's so many listings on there. There's so many different properties. How do you make yours stand out? And why do you want to? So what is the duties of a listing agent? What are the duties of a listing agent? And if you're thinking very base level, you might start listing off things like, okay, well, I got to get pictures, I got to get the property details, I got to write a property description. And yes, these are a bunch of boxes you've got to check that, yes, you've got to do. But ultimately, your number one duty, your number one thing more than anything, excuse me, is to get attention. So number one over everything else is getting attention. That means being the number one trending listing on Zillow. Because in order to get that, we got over 10,000 views in 2 weeks. There's properties that have been listed 3 months that don't have anywhere near that amount of views. And this was a top of the mid-range price for a property too, which as you get lower in price, it's easier to get more attention. It's easier to get more views because there's more affordability. Because even the people that can afford a higher price real estate, a lot of times they might be real estate investors also purchasing the lower priced real estate. So you want to get as much attention as possible. And yes, putting it in the MLS is going to help you do that, because the MLS is such a powerful tool, because what it does is the MLS doesn't just feed this out to all the agents that are searching. What it does is it takes your listing information. So you input it in the MLS, it goes on to Zillow. It goes on to Realtor.com. It goes on to Homes.com. It goes on to Trulia. It goes on to Redfin. It's a popular one. It goes on to every real estate website of every real estate brokerage that has what's called an IDX website. So most brokerages have something called an IDX website, and an IDX website, it stands for like Internet Data Exchange, something like that. But it basically means that the listings in the MLS are actually real-time streamed onto your website. So people can basically search the actual MLS just like they're doing on Zillow and all these other websites. But what that does now is that gets you more exposure. Because maybe somebody's favorite website is Zillow, but another person's favorite website is Realtor.com, and another buyer's favorite website is Homes.com, and then you got another one that's loyal to their brokerage's listing website. But the thing that's great about this is one push of one button, you just check the box to stream this everywhere, and it now syndicates this out to all of these different websites. And so that gets you so much attention. But if we really dive deeper into that, what else are you doing besides just making the listing to show up? Because there's a difference between getting, 500 views on Zillow and getting 10,000 views on Zillow. So what else are you doing that's going to help you get attention? And this comes into the photographs that you're using. So a pro tip is use a pro for the photographs. Don't do the photographs yourself. Don't use your cell phone. I don't care if you're a photographer, unless you've been specifically trained on real estate photography and you have experience. You wouldn't hire an amateur. So if you're an amateur to real estate photography, why would you hire yourself? Sure, if you want to practice, go ahead, but don't use those photos. Go hire somebody who, and there's very different levels of photographer. Look at their work, look at their portfolio. Now, as you get higher in price, it's usually going to look better. That's not always the case. But then it comes back to you as the listing agent. Is it worth it? Is it really going to help the property sell by paying for the top dollar premium photos? Absolutely. Not only have I seen this in my own transactions, but the transactions I oversee at the brokerages. Again, I hold multiple brokered licenses. And on top of that, I just peruse the MLS in my free time, in my spare time. I think it's fun to do. I like looking at properties. I love that I could have a job that basically you flip through some properties, scroll through some properties, and actually sell them. That's what makes the money, not just looking at them. But when you have the license, I mean, that's half the battle, is knowing the product, having the product knowledge. And that's what I would say is going to be number 2. Number 1 priority, number 1 duty, number 1 thing that you've got to do in every way possible is to get attention. And number 2 is the product knowledge. And when I mean product knowledge, I mean knowing about the neighborhood. I mean knowing about the property. I mean knowing what it's like to live in that property and envisioning life in that property, because that's what you want to convey through the listing. If you don't know the details of the property, if you don't know what it's like to live in the property, I'm not saying you have to go live in the property, but you have to envision yourself living there. Envision yourself waking up there. Envision your ideal buyer. A lot of like real estate coaches, they'll call it like an avatar or something along those lines of, you know, having a profile of what the ideal buyer looks like for this. And based on that profile, you could think about, okay, how would this person live in this home? How would they use this home? Would they be entertaining here? Would they be swimming in the pool? Are they watching their kids in the pool? Are they watching guests in the pool? Are they whatever? You're, again, thinking this through and now trying to, without being too specific, because I've seen agents go way too far with this, where they'll like write the description for an audience of 1 person. So you're not trying to write the audience of 1. And that's the number 1 mistake that most sellers make when they're trying to for sale by owner, when they're trying to do it on their own, is they think, oh, I just need a buyer. So in the seller's mind, all this stuff that's up here, oh, I just need a buyer. I have a property to sell. I need to find somebody to buy. But what the average seller doesn't understand is exactly how much attention you really need to get that property sold. And a good way to judge this, a good way to judge you, to measure yourself if you're actually licensed and taking listings, is how quickly can you get these listings sold? Are you on average with the days on market? Are you taking longer than the days on market? Or are you quicker than days on market? Because that's something you can sell. Because when you go to a client and say, I could get you top dollar, so will every other agent. And you probably won't be the only agent saying this, but it sounds a lot better when you say you could get top dollar and do it faster than everyone else. And you might say, well, John, that's not how the market works, because, you know, if you want to get top dollar, you got to let it sit on the market a little bit. Yes, of course. Don't get me wrong here. But I'm saying I could do both. I could get you top dollar and I could do it faster than everybody else, because I'm going to perform the core duties better than anybody else. I'm going to have more product knowledge than any other real estate agent here. I'm going to know this property inside and out. I'm going to know the neighborhood. I'm going to know the market. I'm going to know the ideal buyers. And I'm going to cater the entire listing around that concept. And not about the person. It's very much about the property. But you want to basically, literally and figuratively, open the door to their dreams. So they're envisioning, you know, watching their kids swim in the pool. And you know, maybe you want to revise what you're writing, say, oh, you could be cooking in the kitchen watching your kids swim in the pool. You know, maybe preparing a meal in the kitchen while you watch your guest in the pool. That could be kids, or that could be somebody that you're entertaining for. And now you've tweaked that to, and let's not even get involved in the fair housing stuff here, because you also start talking about familial status and all kinds of things like that. There's fair housing that you could be violating. I'm not saying forget about fair housing, but set that aside for a moment here so we can think of, again, the bigger picture. We're not doing this just to comply with fair housing. We're doing this to appeal to a wider audience, to make it appealing, but making appealing to as wide of an audience as possible. Too many agents, again, they try to pigeonhole their listings. So you can overdo that whole concept of an avatar or profile, because the reality is you don't have a crystal ball. You are not a fortune teller. You don't know exactly who's going to buy the property. And you might say, well, I'm right every single time. Well, yeah, that's because if you're writing the description, you're going to kind of steer people to that property based on what you're saying in there. And you're ultimately doing a disservice, because by limiting the attention You're limiting the amount of offers. By limiting the attention, by limiting the amount of offers, you're limiting the amount of money you're able to get from the property. Because if people don't know it's for sale, they can't make an offer on it. So your job, number one, is to get as much attention as possible. And this doesn't mean just putting it in the MLS and doing it right, but also what else can you do to gain further exposure from doing things as, let's talk about open houses. So open houses, that should be something going on every single weekend until that property is sold. Because open houses give you an opportunity to talk about the property, to host an event. People love going to events, and what's great about the MLS is when you put the open house in the MLS, it blasts it out to all these places as well. So if you're on Zillow, you could see, oh, look, there's an open house coming up. If you're on Realtor.com, oh, look, there's an open house coming up. If you're on your brokerage's favorite website, oh, look, there's an open house coming up. Pretty much every modern property website will pull in that open house data from the MLS. How magical. And you could keep doing that. Every time you do that, it'll even give people notifications on some of these different platforms like, hey, look, there's an open house this weekend at this property you looked at earlier. Because these websites all want to work better. The brokerages want to sell the real estate. The other third-party websites want to sell agents leads. So the more interest that they could get, the more there is to go around for everyone. And realtors love to complain about Zillow, and I get it. We don't want Zillow to take over everything, but just do better. Do better, be better, and you don't have to worry about Zillow taking your job. If you focus on being better, if you focus on being listings especially, because, you know, I mean, if I were to sell my home, and I mean, it's hard just because my life is so much real estate. If I didn't know everything I knew, but I still have enough sense to hire somebody that's going to go after and do these things, attention is, whether your clients, your buyers and sellers, and most of the time the sellers are not going to think this is what's most important. That's where you'll even sometimes get sellers that don't want to even have open houses, or they want to limit their showings, or they might want to say something ridiculous like, oh, I don't even want to show the property unless they're pre-approved. I mean, if you're requiring pre-approvals just to even see the property, that is, again, adding limits. Because if another realtor is it's the realtor that's working with that buyer that doesn't have a pre-approval that's really the most at risk here. They're the ones that are wasting their time. And yes, maybe the people live in the property. That's something you maybe need to overcome. Look, listings can be tricky, but if you've got solutions to all of these different problems, they're the easiest way to make money in real estate, because you control the property for sale. It's your listing. You've listed for sale. You're the one that's doing the work to get the property attention. You're taking that product knowledge that you have and you're using it to craft a beautiful listing description that compels people into this property, that envisions how glorious life would be if they just owned this property. That's what you're trying to convey in the description, as well as through the photos. And if your photos are dim and crooked and the property's dirty or cluttered, maybe the photos are grainy, or maybe they're not even lined up from the angles. There's all these things that there's a whole science to taking really, really good photos. And somebody who's really good at it, they're going to fly through it, because they usually don't even need to check to see if the pictures are good. They just know they're going to turn out perfect. Or someone's an amateur and they're just pointing and clicking and they're not checking the photos and they're going to turn out really bad looking. But if someone's going through clicking, and I've seen photographers that are like A-list photographers that do real estate photography exclusively, and they fly through the property and the pictures turn out immaculate. But that's because you're using a professional, and that's the level of professional you want to be as a realtor. But if you're also going to wear the hat of a photographer, now how are you going to be so good at both things? There's only so many things you could be really, really, really good at. Yeah, maybe you could do a lot of things. You know, maybe you could go buy your own drone. I've seen so many realtors, and I think they just want to play with a drone, and they justify it by saying, well, I could buy a drone for my real estate listings. And they're crashing it in the trees, and you're like, no, I could fly it. Okay, cool, but I mean, it's like an extra $20 usually to get like drone photos done. So maybe more if it's a bigger property or something like that, or depending on who you're using or anything. But without getting too deep into this, that's all about getting attention. Because when the property looks nice, when the property looks, wow, look how beautiful this property is, look how nice this is, they're going to share it to their friends. That's getting more attention. And that's where you start getting some virality of the spreading of your listing. And that's how you can make it onto those trending pages. And they're all by locality. So wherever it is that you're working, maybe you're in a bigger city like Tampa, and it's a little bit harder to do because there's so many listings. But if you're in a smaller locality than that, and it pops up with, trending listings and blah, 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 whenever you go on Zillow, it's going to be easier to make that list. But the way you do it is by getting attention. So number 1, getting attention. Number 2, product knowledge. Number 3, and you're going to say, like, well, really, this is number 3? But it's confidence. And maybe you think that should be number 1. Maybe you're right, because confidence goes a long way. But what if your seller tells you something that you know is going to be a problem? Not only do you have to have the confidence, but you also need to have the negotiation skills. The negotiation skills are what stop a lot of agents from even being able to get the listing in the first place, because there's another agent who comes in who's got better negotiating skills, and they're able to negotiate that deal before you do. And so the confidence and the negotiation skills go hand in hand. Because the more confident you are, the better of a negotiator you'll be. That's where confidence probably goes the furthest, is with negotiation. Confidence will go the furthest in negotiation than really anything else it is that we do. And that could be even negotiating the price, because one of the things that's going to be essential, a very specific thing that's essential, is not overpricing your listing. If your listing's overpriced, no one's sharing it. I mean, maybe it's really nice. Maybe it's like a multi-million-dollar home that only a very few people could afford, but it's really nice to look at. It's really neat. It's very beautiful. The pictures are great. Even then, people are going to share that around, even if they've got no interest in buying it. But if we did a bad job writing a description, if we kind of just say like, oh, it's a great property in a good neighborhood, submit your offers today. All right, I know nothing about the property. I've been told no story of the property. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to tell them the story of living in the property through a guided tour. That's probably the simplest, quickest definition I could give of a good listing description. That you're telling a story while taking them on a tour through what their life could be like living in this property, in this neighborhood. Schedule your appointment today. Ending with a nice strong call to action, very important as well. That goes a long, long way. But those are very specific things, and you need to be confident that you know what you're doing. And this is going to also come with experience. It's going to come with experience, but it also comes through gaining skills, such as negotiating skills. Because like I said, one of the key specific things to making sure your property gets attention is that it's priced well. Because if it looks like a deal, and that's what you want to do. You want to price just below the market value, at the market value, but never any higher than the market value. And if you're higher than the perceived market value, you better be confident about your market value, and you better have some comps or something to justify. Otherwise, your property's going to sit on the market. And if it is overpriced, it's not going to get as much attention. You could use that as the judge. Are people looking at it online? Go check the Zillow stats and compare your listing to other listings and see which ones are doing better, which ones are getting more views, which ones are getting more saves, and try to figure out what makes that listing so good, what's making consumers. The MLS doesn't have anything like this. The MLS, as far as I understand, and I've used the MLS for many, many years in the Stellar MLS system, as well as pretty much all the other MLSs, I've never seen anything with like a popularity ranking or anything like that. And most of the other websites don't have that either. Maybe you have some trending listings, but the number one most visited site is Zillow. So that's a good place to go to use their data. They're collecting this massive level of data, and they're literally sharing it with us all, for us all to see. Wow, it has this many views, it has this many saves, and they even have an algorithm of how likely it is to sell compared to other listings. You'll see a lot of times where it's like saying, oh, 99% likely to sell faster than other listings in the market. And they have their own algorithm that's ranking listings based on the views, based on the attention, based on how many pictures people are clicking through, and so on and so forth. So you could use that data. Just go on there and look at the listings and then try to figure out, okay, what is it? And now if your listing isn't getting views, dissect it first and foremost with what are you maybe not doing? What are you missing? What are you not including in there? But if you already know that maybe you're a little high on the price and you couldn't negotiate a lower price with the seller, because that's where your negotiation skills are happening before you even start talking to buyers. You're negotiating on behalf of yourself to get the deal. You're negotiating with the seller on the final listing details, including the listing price. And maybe you want to list it. You have the comps about the market value, but if you're not confident enough, maybe you don't have enough of the negotiation skills, maybe you're not hitting home whatever that price is, and they want to list it at whatever price they think anyways. And so you go with it, but now you look at the attention and you see, well, hey, look, you look at all the other photos. Our photos are beautiful. The photos look great compared to all the other listings. We've got a great listing description in here. We're not leaving out anything important. But we're still getting very low views. The low views, because people might not even click on it if it's priced out of their range. So if you're getting low views, that's an indicator to reduce price. And that's something that happens. That's okay. Because when you do a price reduction, you key that into the MLS that you're reducing the price. Well, guess what? It tells everybody. And you might think that's a bad thing, and it doesn't necessarily help your negotiation position if you've got a price reduction. But if you haven't gotten the property sold, it's a chance of getting it sold. Because maybe before, that's a little too out of a range, but maybe you reduce it like $10,000, and all of a sudden, hey, wait a minute, we could afford that. Oh, or what actually happens, especially in a market where things happen a little bit slower, there's more time for people to say, well, I see you've reduced it this much. What if I make you an offer of this much? And maybe there's some more negotiations. And again, that's where, markets like we're in today, that's where the negotiation skills will take you much farther than the average agent, the better you can get at that. And yes, there's a skill section of that as well, but also a confidence of being able to use those skills. Use them on behalf of yourself, use them in conversations with the seller and it's not necessarily just trying to get your way, because the seller doesn't want it to sit on the market and not sell either. It's just getting them to see your point of view, your professional point of view. And if you're confident, that goes a long way, because a lot of times people aren't even always listening to everything that you say, but if you're saying it confidently, they might just go along with it just because they don't really understand, but you seem to know what you're talking about, so let's just do what you said. That could happen. Okay, perfect. Sounds great. Do you need me to re-explain anything or break it down any further for you, or do you want to just go ahead and move forward? Great. So these are the 4 skills. We won't call them duties, we'll call them skills. The skill of getting attention. The skill of the product knowledge, the specific product knowledge about that property, which you're not going to have in advance. So you will have to do some due diligence and studying and reading up on that property and understanding the neighborhood. That's why it's important to have a farm area. The confidence, knowing what you're doing in the listing in general, knowing a lot of these specific things. Your brokerage probably has some sort of training on holding listings. If not, maybe reconsider your brokerage or find somebody at the brokerage who's willing to train you on that. And then also negotiation skills. That is the one that you need really across the board. You need that when you're working with buyers, but if you want to be able to even get your foot in the door with listings, that's where the negotiation skills are going to come in. And that's why a lot of agents might start working with buyers. They build up some skills, they build up some confidence, and then they break into listings. They start working with sellers now once they've learned some of those negotiation skills, they've been on the other side of some of those deals, and again, they have the confidence that they can do it. So look, that's about all the time we've got for today. I want to thank you for joining us today for the essentials of listings. I hope this has helped you better understand how to list a property for sale. And not just how to check the boxes, but how to do that well. I know this training, we didn't really cover all the specifics. Well, you need to get the kitchen measurements and the living room measurements and the master bedroom measurements. Except we got to call that a primary bedroom now because that's the correct term. And yeah, there's a lot of technicalities with all that. And you could do all those little technical things and have a terrible listing if you're not paying attention to these skills right here. This is the difference maker from a mediocre listing to an exceptional listing. Is number one, the more attention, the better. The more product knowledge you have, the better. The more confident you are, the better. And again, having the negotiation skills to pull it all together, because there's a lot of different people and things you got to pull together. And sometimes it's just negotiating people to do their job. You know, I've worked with some less than favorable lenders and title companies or attorneys or all different parties, inspectors, appraisers, and other sides of the deal, other realtors, and so on and so forth. So you've got to do a lot of pulling in a lot of different directions. But if you could pull it off, the reward is quite good. And on average, despite all the pulling you might have to do to keep the deal together, on average, when you're working with a seller, you're doing about a third of the amount of work compared to working with a buyer. It takes about 3 times as much time to close a buyer compared to working with a seller. So this is a really great thing to have. You could still work with both buyers and sellers, but you want to be carrying inventory. It gives you things to market, it gives you things to promote, and it gives you ways to get attention for your business. Because you go around saying, hey, I'm the best realtor in the world. Here's a postcard. Here's my reviews. Here's this, here's that. And so many agents make the mistake of talking about themselves when nobody cares about how good their realtor is, unless it's how good they are for them. That's the only time they really care about how good you are. But where you could get their attention when they're not necessarily thinking about buying or selling is through the properties. And by association of you listing properties and you constantly, being busy as a realtor and being able to showcase all the transactions you're doing, they're going to just naturally know. You don't have to tell them you're good. They're going to just see how good you are. Listings are, again, a gateway, a pathway to expanding your business exponentially. If you want to hear more about this, let us know. We'll do some future episodes on listings. Get enrolled in your post-licensing course if you haven't done that yet. And if you don't even have a license, reach out to us. Again, that phone number, 813-333-2676. Again, 813-333-2676. It's about all the time we've got for today. Again, thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday, 12 noon Eastern time for another episode of The State of Real Estate. Until then, have a fantastic week.
Are you studying for your Florida real estate exam? If you are, you need to check out our Pass First Try strategy. You're gonna love this. It's 4 steps that we break down the process to study for your Florida real estate exam. So you're set up to pass your Florida real estate exam, because that's what you're studying for, right? To pass your exam. It's 4 steps. Number 1, you learn the information. You've got to learn this to be able to pass the exam, but it doesn't stop at learning. Step 2, you've got to reinforce the basic, simple, key concepts. As you learn this information, keep reviewing the simple things. You don't need to know everything, but you got to review these basic key concepts. Step 3, you've got to test your knowledge. The exam's going to test your knowledge, so if you don't test your knowledge in advance, you won't find out if you know what you think you know until you take the exam. And then step 4 is be confident and prepared, because even if you know this material, you need to be confident that you know the material. Check out the full strategy at passfirsttry.com. That's passfirsttry.com. So you just got your real estate license. How can you jumpstart your real estate business? The number 1 thing you should do before you do anything else is post-licensing. Now look, this is already a requirement, so you're gonna have to do it anyways, but here's why you wanna do it early. The sooner you do post-licensing, the sooner you're gonna learn the real-world concepts in post-licensing that will help you create a business plan, that'll help you plan for your success in real estate. Post-licensing is all about real-world topics that are usable, that'll help you grow your real estate business. And at Tampa School of Real Estate, we have the best post-licensing courses around. Find out more about how post-licensing can help you jumpstart your real estate career. Go to postflorida.com.
Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?
If you're looking to get in on the real estate action that's going on in Tampa right now, we're who you need to talk to. We can help you get your real estate license, start your real estate career. We're here to assist you for the life of your real estate career. Give us a call. Phone number is 813-928-0106, or check us out online at tampaschool.com. Do
you want to incorporate studying for your real estate exams into your busy schedule? Now you can review the key topics you need to know to pass your class and state exams with our MP3 audio review. Simply pop in your headphones or connect to your car to reinforce crucial information while you exercise or drive. Listen to the first unit for free at mp3audioreview.com. That's mp3audioreview.com.
Today, which I'm sure you are, be sure to hit like, subscribe, post your comments, share with your friends and family. Thank you guys so much for watching.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate.